Hello everybody, this is BEBE Davis, publisher and founder of 1021 Magazine. We are all waiting on the verdict. The jury has come back after just a few hours for the Murdaugh murder trial. Thank you for locking in, and we are waiting on what this verdict is going to be. It is Thursday, March the 2nd, 2023.
All right, you're looking at live pictures. That's Alex Murdaugh there waiting for the verdict. The jury, we understand, has a verdict in this case. This is live, what you're watching right now.
So everybody's live. We have CNN
which is happening
here. We have
and you were looking
a lot of other editors who are in South Carolina and everywhere. We're just waiting on this verdict. It's very, very quick. Myself, as a pre-law, political science major, I thought they would have deliberated until tomorrow.
Thank you. Madam Froy, if you'll stand for me.
Okay.
Have you reached the verdict?
Yes, sir, we have.
Is it unanimous?
Yes, sir, it is.
Unanimous.
If you will pass it up to the clerk, who will pass it to me.
And we are live.
And you may be seated.
She's handing him the verdict. The judge is looking over all documents for the Murdaugh murder trial.
Defendant will rise.
Oh my goodness. Here we go, everybody.
Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdict starting with the back, not with the, let's see, tell you again.
Alex Murdaugh murder trial.
Starting with
in South Carolina.
Flipping them over one by one. State of South Carolina versus.
Docket number 2022 GS 15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Okay. Guilty verdict, signed by the forelady, 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS-15-00595, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, SC Code -16-23-0490, CDR Code 0549, verdict guilty, signed by the foreperson of the jury, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022 GS-15-00594, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code 16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549. Verdict, guilty. Signed by the foreperson of the jury, 3-2-23.
Thank you. Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is the verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hands. All right, thank you. Any individual polling requested? Madam Clerk, you'll need to individually poll the jury according to their juror numbers.
Number 193. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 254.
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 326. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 530. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 544.
Yes.
Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 572. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 578. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 589. Was this your verdict? Is it still your verdict? Juror 630. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 729. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 826. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your
They're
verdict?
asking the jury, are they
Juror
sure that this is
864.
their verdict? They
Was
must
this your verdict?
have these things
Is it
into
still your
play.
verdict? Yes.
They also have panned to his son, Buster, who is the
Thank you.
only
The jury has
surviving
been polled and the verdict is a unanimous verdict.
member
If you
of the
will bring
family,
the
and he is
alternate
pretty much
juror out and have
has
her,
a stance kind of like
sit
I
in the
did.
audience, please.
If you are watching live on your own, unanimously found guilty. Ah. Even with much reasonable doubt, the age of information and technology, all of that pretty much would put the seal of the deal. And with his son
You can
Paul,
stand there or you can sit back there, whatever you prefer. Okay.
I don't know if there's going to be
Are
any
there
chance of
post-trial
appeals here,
motions?
but the prosecution really did their job.
We would just renew our previously argued motions for a directed verdict, and at this, on the grounds, on those grounds, we would make a motion for a mistrial to set aside the verdict.
Their motion for a mistrial.
State response.
Your Honor, based on our previous arguments, we would submit that the case properly went to the jury and the verdict is proper, and would rely on those arguments.
Okay. And that was the prosecution.
We've been here now 28 days. First few days of jury selection and the remainder receiving testimony, an overwhelming amount of testimony and evidence that was presented to the jury for the jury's consideration. As I indicated to the jury during the jury charge, or the charge on the law, that this was a matter solely for the jury to determine. The court found at the end of the state's case that there was sufficient evidence to find the defendant guilty if the evidence was believed by the jury. Likewise, at the end of the defense's case, when the motion was renewed, the court found that the evidence was sufficient for the jury to find the defendant guilty. The jury has now considered the evidence for a significant period of time, and the evidence of guilt is overwhelming, and I deny the motion.
So the judges denied the motion for mistrial.
Mr. Murdaugh, you now having been found guilty of
Now it's going to be
2 counts of
sentencing.
murder,
2
involving
counts.
your wife and your son, 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. The burden now comes upon the
Sentences.
court to impose a sentence.
Sentencing, yes.
Given the lateness of the hour
That's not going to happen
and
tonight.
the
I don't think so.
victims' rights that must be
Or it could be pushed through. We don't know. We're about to find
taken into
out.
consideration and complied with under the Victims' Bill of Rights, and consider what I would anticipate to be a number of people who might have something to say regarding sentencing. We will defer sentencing to a later date. Of course, the minimum sentence for murder is 30 years. The maximum sentence is life imprisonment. As to each count, and on the weapons charge, the sentence is up to 5 years, or 5 years, which has to be concurrent if a life sentence is imposed. When would you all like to reconvene for sentencing? I would like to give everyone an adequate opportunity to prepare for it.
So they'll be ready at 9:30 in the morning, Your Honor.
So they're going to be ready for getting that sentence underway in the AM. So,
We can do it at 9:30 tomorrow morning also.
All right.
okay, we are live.
Defendant is remanded to
Still.
the custody of the Colleton County
No personal
Sheriff's
feelings
Department.
on the live broadcast. I think the judge has been quite compassionate for all
And he may
involved.
be taken away.
And just like that, he said, you may be taken away. This is stunning, everyone. For some and for others, it's not, because you never know which way the pendulum was going to be swinging on this. They're taking him away, but CNN is at this time probably doing their own broadcast, which I'm not going to incorporate in my broadcast, but we'll see. Let's see.
Madam Foley and members of the jury, I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens of the state of South Carolina and your fellow citizens of Colleton County. You did not volunteer for this service. You were called upon by being summoned to appear, and
For the duty.
Providence have brought you to this moment in time and these weeks in time. I know that all of you have been here at great sacrifice, particularly the juror whose job was on the line until a miracle happened, I guess.
Write a book, baby. Write a
allowed them
book.
To be able to leave to stay rather than leave after 2 or 3 weeks. But I want to thank each one of you all individually and collectively. It's not often that you're called upon to sit in judgment of the actions of your fellow man, but you all responded and gave due consideration to the evidence. I will make no comment now as to the extent or the overwhelming nature of the evidence, but certainly the verdict that you've reached is supported by the evidence, circumstantial evidence, direct evidence, all of the evidence pointing to only one conclusion. That's the conclusion that you all reached. So I applaud you all for, as a group and as a unit and individually, evaluating the evidence and coming to a proper
A proper and a very quick
As
conclusion.
you saw the law, as as you saw the facts. Now that you've served for the next year, you're not eligible to serve again. Now, of course, many people never get called upon. But you're not eligible for the next year, and for 2 additional years, you can be exempted from service, because no person is required to serve on jury duty in this court more often than once every 3 years.
That is correct.
Tomorrow morning at 9:30, we will reconvene for sentencing. You all have no role in that, because that's solely up to the judge, to me. You're welcome to come back if you want to and be a part of the audience, if you like. I also want to thank the alternate juror who was locked away in a room by herself for these hours, who's hung in there during that period of time. I want to thank you.
Commendable.
As well. Madam Clerk, what do you have to tell your jurors?
Thank you for your service and what the judge said as well. And I think we can release them tonight and bring them back in the morning.
No, they're off jury duty. They can come back if they like. And you don't have to if you don't want to. Typically, I've seen jurors.
The judge
Wanting to see
is Clifton Newman.
Well, you saw Alex Murdaugh let out there with handcuffs on, guilty on all 4 counts, guilty of murdering his wife and...
Okay, CNN is having their synopsis. I'm going to go ahead and do mine. They removed Alex Murdaugh from the courtroom expeditiously. The tone was professional from the judge, but it was just like, remove the murderer. Most judges will have their own thought process, but for those who are new to the process of jury trials and very high profile cases like this, and those who are not high profile, a judge's duty is also to thank the jurors who have to somewhat put their lives on hold, especially in cases like this, where, like he stated, your job is on the line and you chose to stay. And I just kind of broke that tension there, because it is high tension that, hey, write a book. People are going to want to hear what you say, interviews, all of that. And I'm not giving anything that people just haven't done already, because people want to know, how did you feel? What did you feel about this? Now, the closing arguments, I thought, from the prosecution and the defense were really, really good. What does this tell you? What does this tell the country? Because the world all over looked at this trial. Very interesting state of events here. And if the phone rings or anything like that, we are fully live. I'm getting some text alerts on my phone here, but I'll be speaking with the editors later. But Harpootlian, the defense for the Murdaugh trial, did exactly what a defense attorney would do, ask for a mistrial. And then the judge just went right into it, that with all of the overwhelming evidence that they had and things that just synced up really good, no, I would not grant that. Now, you have to give the hats off to both. And what is so amazing in this is when you look back like 30 years ago or whatever, here you have the lawyers and the judges and everybody who is quite familiar with each other. The judge used to be a lawyer before going into his honorship. And then you have the prosecution who went to school with Murdaugh. When it comes to evidence, when it comes to reasonable doubt, when it comes to you cannot find the murder weapon, you cannot find the clothes, anything to link them. Okay, we're going to proceed forward. The closing arguments for the prosecution, I felt, went very timely. It broke down the timeline. It started attacking the reasonable doubt, which there was plenty. We're still alive. I can hear you a little bit. Thank you. We're still on the phone and doing our rounds with different people, but we want to try and keep it as quiet on the set as possible here. You break down the timelines to close out those super doubts. They angled very well Creighton Waters. Alex Murdaugh was being represented by Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin. Very great lawyers. And the case is being overseen by Judge Newman. Judge Newman, notably coming off of Black history, is the nephew of the late civil rights leader Isaiah DeQuincy Newman. Creighton Waters is the chief prosecutor for the state grand jury and leads the prosecuting team against Murdaugh. Now, we can jab and poke at different ways that both lawyers handled the witnesses or people who did testimony. I thought that for both, it could have been a lot better. You did see some glaring dynamics. You did see some insensitivity. And I'm so glad in the age of information, the age of digital information, you saw people who left their own feelings, and this was beyond race, that they could have done better with some of the witnesses. And I'm just going to call it like I see it. As a publisher, going into our 21st year, journalist since 19, and I'm probably 52. My birthday just passed, February 27th. When you have jurors on the set, we'll break those things down later, now that we got the verdict. With the woman of color housekeeper for Murdaugh's mother, both the prosecution and the defense should have done better. They were very aggressive. They were very close in her face, and all she was doing was testifying to the accounts of when he had left the property of Moselle and came over to his mother for the possible talking points of our alibi. She provided the information about the tarpon and that he had asked if there was anything that she needed because she was getting married and he would pay for it and all of that. But they were very more insensitive to that lady. And then when she was emotional, no one from either side, and then too, not even the judge. So I'm not being a colorist nature here, but I'm just saying no one offered this lady who was very emotional, who was the caretaker for the elder lady, matriarch. They did not offer that caretaker a piece of tissue, a Kleenex. But then you saw with others, they wasn't in their space, they wasn't coming at them, and they offered the sensitivity. What I like to tell people, because I have been on many courtroom cases and I have been a witness, you do have the right to tell people without any doubt, you're too much in my space. You do have the right, if it is not offered to you, could I get a box of Kleenex, please? Because there are a lot of high emotions, but I'm very most proud of those who commented, because we still have compassion in a courtroom, and none of us are too well-versed not to be more well-versed, to not be perfectly imperfect. I felt like that was a lot of intimidation, but she clearly gave something, but we'll talk about that. I thought that it was going to be guilty, but some counts not guilty because of the reasonable doubt out there. And we hope that with the guilty verdict, that this is the right verdict and the right person is getting their comeuppance, and that justice will be served for Paul and for Maggie Murdaugh. No one, despite anything, should lose their life, no matter if you see them as they had this coming or didn't have this coming. This is why we have the law in place. This is why I still wholeheartedly believe in the judicial system. I don't think this was easy for any of the jurors, but with the overwhelming timeline that could not add up, that just stayed glaring all the time, that you could not say I went to take a nap and then boom, you're just out of there and then you're just going up there. It did seem more like an alibi. I always like to look at these cases, and we'll get more in depth on them since this is just pretty much breaking news right here. I like to play the advocate of one side versus the other. There was plenty reasonable doubt. And you have so many different circumstances. There's so many great documentaries out there. And I'll be talking about some of them that I really enjoyed, that were very up close and personal, that knew the law of the land in the low country of South Carolina, which is where my family originally hails from, on the maternal side, on my grandfather's side. When you start doing the genealogy and you just started talking to your elders before they moved on from this earth, we are locked right there in good Beaufort, South Carolina. That's where our origins come from with my grandfather. And from there, the family migrated over to Hampton. The family migrated over to Hilton Head. The family in the Sea Islands migrated there to the different islands, St. Helena and other islands. Okay, so that's our origins. We do come from the origins where on the census it shows mulatto. You can't change the facts of history. It just is what it is. My 6th generation grandfather was the slave master of one of the plantations in Beaufort. Relations, I wasn't there, consensual or not consensual, but that produced my 5th generation grandfather, who on the census was mulatto. Well, the slave masters, some of them, of course, this is common nature. Some of them had a lot more compassion for these children that they created, and some did not. With this particular vibe, my 5th generation grandfather was given real estate by his slave master's father They kept really good records on him. He did not see, from the records that we have, did hard labor. But he didn't free them. But he had everything, documents, giving him real estate. Not a hard way to go with the slave life. Showed his death and how he died and all of that. My fourth generation grandfather was a grandson of the slave master, and he saw freedom, whereas his father didn't. But they kept close tabs and, kept them close and all of that. But my fourth generation grandfather was like, I went from a slave to a free man, and parlayed the real estate from his grandfather, who was the slave master, and got on up out of Beaufort. Some of the family there in Hampton, and then other places, and thus that part is the makers of me. Looking in at the trial, I wasn't shocked. A little bit shocked, not shocked, but I'm not going to give the full breadth of our family name. But when it did come up in some of the witness testimony, just not as conspirators, but just people there in the makings, it wasn't a shock, but it was just like, wow. Because when you know that your family is locked in to this area where the trial and the Murdaugh family is from and everything like that, you're just like, whoo, so when I heard the family name, I looked up, I was like, oh my. And my mother just happened to be with me. She's the matriarch of our family now. And now that my grandparents have moved on to the other side of life, she was like, well, there it is. My mother's so Southern genteel. Now, throughout the sentencing, the body language of Alex Murdaugh, just want to give you a little makers of me. But he didn't show any type of emotion there. They let him out. Oh my gosh. It was just like very shocking to some people. And I'm sure some people are overjoyed. But again, in the age of information, whether you have the murder weapon, whether or not you have the bloody clothes, the usual suspects of clinking in that super verdict of guilt, what you do have is the changing of the stories, trying to misplace blame everywhere. The timeline doesn't make any sense. And the son and his TikTok last video that placed Alex Murdaugh right there with Paul and with Maggie. It just was enough for the jury to say guilty. But I do hope that this is the right sentence. Everyone, when the judge asks, is this your verdict? What we could hear in my analysis is that everybody was assured. There might have been just one person, but that just could be their nature. The je ne sais quoi. That they were a little bit soft-spoken. But there was no shakiness in the voices. There wasn't any, I really don't know about this. Now, there could be drama that may ensue. We don't know. I think this is far from over as far as the drama. Buster, the only living son that was there, he kept no emotion too much, but you could still see some of it. This moment was just, oh my goodness. And I'm so glad that we were able to capture the live moment, because this has been a very busy day. I've been on the move and on the go. We've had some funerals to attend, what we in the South love to call celebration of life, homegoing services. And with the weather being so all everywhere, which is expected going into March, I was just glad that I was able to drop the bags and get the live sentences. Now, let me just go ahead and tell you, I thought that after they convened with the closing arguments, I really thought that, okay, they'll probably deliberate and, go through this. I'm thinking of those jurors that say, hey, we can't forget about Paul and the boat accident, which lost a life, okay, and all of the threats, which is what the defense tried to drive home. And I was just like, well, somebody's got to be doing some reasonable doubt, because this property is so big, somebody could have been waiting. It could have been somebody who was very close and was like, well, he's not going to get away with this death because he was driving the boat. And the way that Paul was killed, it just seems so violent, just super violent, versus Maggie. It could have been a reasonable doubt to say this was someone who was trying to get the justice. And it could have been where the dogs are so used to seeing people on the property that they just wouldn't react as violently, especially when you have Maggie right there that the dogs know, and you have Paul right there that dogs know. But the reasonable doubt there, even though it could have been hashed out, time will come when we will hear about all that, just to see if that was even one of the talking points. But with the jury coming back so quick, that is never a good thing. More times than not, it's never a good thing for the defense. It's a good thing for the prosecution. But then you can't get overwhelmingly excited, because we have seen in many cases where the deliberation with the jury for a verdict came back quick, and it was like, not guilty. And then we have seen the opposite. So I think that both of the prosecution and the defense did a really good job as far as their closing arguments. But again, this is for anyone who may even try it. You may be, or you could be, as well versed on how to get rid of evidence. But if other things don't add up and they place you right there, and then you have the technology of the OnStar and the location, the movements, all of that, it just didn't add up. But could there have been some reasonable doubt? Sure. Will we ever know what truly was the circumstances? Some people are like, I don't really care, I'm just glad for the verdict. Other people's like, well, I'm still saying it could be reasonable doubt. We would like to send our most deepest sympathies to the family, because within this family, you're going to have some who are relieved for that justice, but then you have to have the sensitivity and compassion for Buster. The mother is gone, the brother's gone, and the father is gone. And unless this was a poker face of a century, when he went upon the stand, he stood by his father. So now he has to wrap his mind around, could my father have done this, if that is the scenario? And so then the family around him, who truly love him, they love Maggie's boy, who is still living, And not boy in a derogative term, just like when Creighton Waters saying Maggie was probably trying to go to her baby, Paul, in the midst of the homicide. I'm sure the family is going to love on Buster because even though they may be relieved, it will be quite a moment for him to even wrap his head around this. So we'll just see how it goes. South Carolina, we'll get into that a lot more. It's so many cases that have gone unsolved that are just as dynamic. And I'm not going to talk about any specific ones. When you have a beautiful southern sleepy town, when you have a town on these magnitudes, you have power players. And sometimes it's not the power players. It could just be someone of a sleepy town. And they have not gotten justice or no answers. No justice and no answers for the loss of their loved ones. And so the case is still cold. This should give them hope. And hopefully, at the sound of my voice, any of those families will have someone who would champion upon them to try and solve their unknown and bring about any resolution. We'll be back with some more synopsis because, I'm going to be giving the highlights of my thoughts, my POVs and analysis. But yes, at this hour tonight, there were no long deliberations in the Alec Murdaugh trial. Quickly, on a Thursday, we do not have to wait for Friday. We do not have to have the jurors go on any longer. Alex Murdaugh is found guilty in the murder of his wife and his son. Guilty on all charges. Double murder trial. South Carolina, all eyes have been on the Palmetto State, what I also like to call the Diamond State, my maternal family state. And once again, with our family origins as far as the U.S. on my grandfather's side of the maternal is Beaufort, and I gave you those timelines, and quite shocking and then not shocking. When you're looking at the trial and you're talking to someone, all of a sudden you hear your mother's maiden name pop up and you're like, say what? And then it's not so shocking because that's where your origins are from. I don't think anything is coincidence or anything like that. I don't think that. I think that you're just at the right time, at the right place. I know that my grandfather would always say, don't rush your time. Watch how you live. Watch how you treat people. Because there is such a thing as rushing your time. We're going to be also doing a little bit more relaxed vibes because I'm going to be pulling some scenarios that I thought about for this Murdaugh trial that was happening. So I definitely want you all to come back. I did not want to go on a day-to-day covering this trial leading up. I wanted to come in at the high point. That way we can do the after the Murdaugh trial chronicles and just go from there. Because you have a lot of people who can talk about this trial, they can make their analysis, but don't you just love the people who know that insider vibe? They know about their state. They know about their region. They know about things that any other journalist could not be super privy to, because you've lived the life. You know the workings. You know the bless your heart when it is not bless your heart. You know what I'm saying? You know when things are swept under the rug. You know when things are on the hush. You know that you know that you know. So we have it there. There's going to be a lot of responses. This is going to be a lot of talk. And when you come right back here with 1021 Magazine, where I'm BEBE Davis, publisher and founder, I'm the first person in the whole world who created the first full-feature digital lifestyle magazine, celebrating 21 years for the year 2023. When many people were like, oh my goodness, a full-feature lifestyle magazine, that's not going to happen. This is back in 2002. And look, everybody today has an online presence. Stay your course, work your faith, be in your purpose. And it just fills my heart with joy when you see all of everybody online. And it's just like, you did your thing there, BB. You really, really did. The vision came to you. First person in the world to do a digital lifestyle magazine. We'll be coming with the revamp of the online magazines, and make sure you stay tuned. Until then, you can follow right here on YouTube. We do not have the Facebook presence anymore, so anything that you're seeing until we get that completely shut down is not of us. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can also follow us on Instagram. And again, the premiere will be coming, so we'll be doing up close and personal right here on 1021 Magazine. It's been a pleasure, everybody. Thank you so much for locking in with me for this live update. And the sentencing will start on tomorrow, and I'll be back to lock in with that and my analysis and some more vibes. Thank you so much for locking in, everybody. Have yourself a great night. Prayers to the world, prayers to the universe. We are in March, and this trial is over. And from there, we'll be seeing more. I'm very sure it will be more vibes to come. Thanks so much for locking in, and be well. You've been locked in with me, BEBE Davis, publisher and founder of 1021 Magazine, where the motto is limitless and timeless.